On. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Social Pillar. Sorry for the
We're
delay,
back.
everyone. Slight technical difficulties,
Hello.
but we're here. We're back once again, ready for another episode.
Hey guys.
No, not
What
at
are we
all.
doing, guys? Where
We're
are
doing
we?
a
Who are
live
we?
interactive talk show. We are the Social Pillar, also known as the GM Chef, Roleplay Experience, and OMGM. My name is Jared, also known as the GM Chef. With me, as always, is Roleplay Experience, also known as the wonderful Ian. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. Good to see you, Jared. Good to see you, Thea. Good to
Hi.
see everyone out there. Very much looking forward to today because we get a chance to answer questions as GM. So it's like, thank you everyone out there for posting stuff. I hand over to my other fellow colleague here, Thea.
Me? Me?
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
lord. I'm very unable to put sentences together most of the time, but today especially I am overcome with excitement and enthusiasm for what we are about to do. I'm OMGN, dilettante, dabbler. I run some games, I do some streams, I make some content, and I love my life every second I get to spend with these beautiful people.
Oh.
Hi, beautiful people. What are we doing tonight?
Well, as Ian so concisely put it, we get to talk about questions. We get to answer questions. We've trawled the internet, taken on feedback from our community and all over the place to put together a sort of not an extensive compendium, that'd probably be the wrong word, but a collection of wisdom, advice, tips, and rather hitting a few sort of beats in one episode rather than our deep dives that we usually do. So I'm very much looking forward to that this evening. As always, we would just like to start by acknowledging that we are coming to you from Aboriginal land. I'm coming to you from Ku-ring-gai land, and we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are streaming to you from. So let's get into some questions. I don't think, normally we have a little bit of a structure where we kind of ease into a topic and we go from here and there, but I guess we just start with what the questions are. And
Lead us, man.
starting-
Jared, I reckon you should
Yeah.
lead. Yeah.
We're starting with chaos. I reckon Jared should start this one.
All right.
It's not that Jared is our most wonderful, excellent producer who runs everything behind the scenes. I feel he doesn't do enough work.
I've got to
So
handle
I
that all.
think,
Oh, well,
literally,
let's,
can mute me. If I keep talking, he's going to mute me.
Nah,
That would be a tragedy.
that would be, no. The day that happens will be a very sad day. So, again, like these, a lot of these questions aren't going to be necessarily related because we all, as three different GMs, we hold different perspectives. We have different experiences. We like different things. And I think that's what we wanted to celebrate a little bit tonight as well, is not just always, we like to sort of have a bit of debate and back and forth about what's good, what's bad, about technology at the table, running digital versus in-person games. And there's pros and cons for everything. So tonight is going to be a little bit more quick fire. And I've certainly got an answer for my first question that I wanted to talk about. But I think I might throw it straight back to you, Thea. How do you choose the right tabletop RPG system that you want to play? Or do you choose the right group for the system? Or do you choose the right system for the group? What are your experiences with running different types of games?
That is an excellent question. I nearly said that is an excellent system. Everybody, you can tell where my head is at right now. I apologize in advance for the chaos. In terms of systems, I have predominantly run Dungeons and Dragons for a long time, as I think the three of us all have. In terms of choosing new systems, I don't have a particularly structured way of doing it. I go for what catches my interest. And I know that sounds very broad, so let me kind of refine that a little bit. Things that are interesting me in life at the time, if there happens to be a RPG system that matches that, I kind of want to explore that system because I think gaming is so much an integrated part of my life. Is with my short attention span, oh look, there's something shiny. My interest in gaming tends to go there. So I like to choose games that reflect interests that I have at the time or systems. But I also like to try out new systems. So for example, part of the appeal of Star Trek Adventures was it was a different mechanics to what I was used to, because I like learning new things. I like it to not become stale. As much as I love running a system I'm familiar with, I like it not to become stale. That's kind of my thoughts. I might bounce it to Ian. Do you have an answer for that question?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Is it for like new groups that you're starting, or for the current group that you're starting? Probably, you could have an answer for like,
whatever your experience. I guess like we're primarily just going to be drawing from our experiences tonight. So like, what was your process if and when you've decided to do that, or is there a system you would like to sort of introduce to people, and you're thinking maybe I get the right people, or maybe I find the people and find the system that they're keen on? Or
that's a good point. Well, look, I think also I've been a GM for several years, we'll call it. Probably one of the older generations in it. It's when I was younger, I would try out things much more regularly, and I would be that would be something. And I can imagine for people newer to RPGs, trying stuff, just try whatever you're interested in, I think is the key thing. And I know I did back then. These days, because of just work pressures, time pressures, and life pressures, I'll go with things that I'm actually familiar with more often, which would be like Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, very popular, so I'd probably choose that. And it's also because I know a lot of people want to try that for the first time specifically, so that's easy. It then comes down to what kind of game do they want to play, and that's usually where I go back and forth. But there's also possibilities for like one-shots, because one-shots are very fun and easy to get into, and I'm very open for trying new stuff there. So when it comes to games, I'd probably try, for people who are not used to, I'm actually looking forward to doing more of this, who haven't played many RPGs, I'd like to go with a one-shot with a very simple RPG system, like we did last week with the awesome Lasers and Feelings a couple of weeks ago. Or if it's people keen to play D&D, it's more about what they're keen to do, and also how do I want to introduce the system itself, and something that tailors to their flavour. So, yeah, that's probably what I would look at as well. How about you, Jared, if I throw it to you?
Yeah, I would say it's a matter of where's my starting point and where's my end point. So, as I kind of just said, do I have an existing group of people who are, I need to find out where they're at? And if there's an existing group of people who could be one of my regular D&D 5th edition groups, I'm very keen to try something new with them. We've got a rapport, we've got something going on. And I know, for example, my Spelljammer group, we have discussed the idea of running the Avatar, the Last Airbender system. And that was actually a year ago, which we never got into because that was something that was introduced in Free RPG Day. So also, shout out to Free RPG Day that's coming up on June 22nd around Australia. Get to a local friendly game store near you. Not sponsored, just a massive fan of a really cool day that you may as well be doing because it introduces you to other systems. That's how I learned about Dragonbane.
So, we're not sponsored.
Not sponsored.
No,
it's free.
Out there and
so it's free. I'll be running games at my local store, and I think opportunities like that are really good because gets you quick start guides for a lot of different things, and maybe something jumps out at you and introduces you to, like you were saying, Thea, things that you're interested in you didn't know there was a system for. There's a lot of TV shows and films and classic books that are also going to have their own systems. So, there's a couple of Lord of the Rings ones. There's definitely Warhammer 40k. There's a Dune system. There's Altered Carbon. Lots of very, very amazing rich lore worlds that you can... Yes.
I just want to pull out something funny. It said there's a Lord of the Rings TTRPG. It's not D&D, is it?
There is a 5th edition.
There is a version.
And then I believe Free League have done the One Ring system.
The One Ring. Yeah. So, the same thing.
Yes.
Sorry, that tickled me, and I apparently have been taken over by chaos demons this evening.
It's a good distinction to make because, again, it's like, do you love Lord of the Rings? Do you like the idea of D&D and maybe have played a little bit of it, but it wasn't quite your jam? Cool. There's an RPG for you. Do you love Lord of the Rings and want to try something that's maybe engineered for that universe? Do you like the Witcher video games and you want to try and play that as a tabletop RPG? There are different systems for different, things that you're trying to achieve. So I'd say out of the three elements, you got the starting point where the group's at and what your relationship is with a DM. You've definitely got the system as well. So again, I think we've discussed this a lot. If you as a GM are passionate and excited about something, you're going to bring that across, and then other people are going to get interested. That may just not be their cup of tea. They like fantasy. I want to run Alien. It's not going to work. So maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Again, like you said, a one-shot idea is fantastic, but you got to kind of know that what your audience is, and that's just a wise thing to do as a GM. So let's not go diving into something crazy or different. It's always going to be a conversation. So you can start on both sides, but either way, you're either starting with what the player's kind of keen for, and you included in that group what everyone's keen for, and then kind of find out whether there's something that's going to do what you guys are craving, what you want to mix it up with. And then also the level of experience, because an existing group might just be very comfortable switching to a new game. And I've had that experience introducing Dragonbane to other people. They're like, that was cool as a one shot. I don't think I have the mental capacity for a whole nother game system. And I respect that. So
interesting you say where your players are at, because Among Mates in the chat has had an interesting point. And talked about having sort of attention span of the intended party. I mean, if you want a very in-depth system like Dragonbane or something, maybe if you've got your ADHD streamers, their words, not mine, it is, they just want to go through quickly, and that's fine. So I think that's a really important consideration. And I wonder whether we sort of implicitly think about that, like when we're picking systems. For running either one-shots more than that. There's also a few fans of Avatar in the chat as well.
Amazing. I would love to play it. It looks really fun. And I guess I'll just finally end on, there's also, like we sort of touched, there's complexity. You got these one-page beautiful little nubbins of fun and excitement that work as one-shots. The amount of investment for something that someone might be also interested in, Shadowrun, for example, there is a lot of time and investment before you even get to that first session. So there needs to be this idea of how much investment's going to be in things like Dragonbane, things like D&D, things like, Call of Cthulhu, stuff like that. You can very much learn as you play. There are systems that are not that. There's a lot of forethought. Witcher has a lot of character building and things like that. I think Avatar would probably... Now, I have read through it. And from what I remember, it would be one of those that you can pick up and play. And I just mean kind of get a character sheet and have someone talk you through it as you play. Shadowrun is not that. You really need to know how and why those numbers are where they are. So complexity
Do you
is
feel
also a
that
massive thing.
simpler games are becoming more popular now because more people want to try RPGs? And I mean, it's much more that user friendly. It's a kinder introduction than kind of like a gateway game. And this is not one of my questions, by the way. I'm not using them up yet. It's just something that occurred to me. I feel like society and expectations of an entertainment experience might be shaping that. What do you guys think?
I'd say that in the last 10 years, I've seen more one-shots than I've ever seen before. Like I've not seen one-shots as a general thing. It's usually D&D would do a one-shot game of its own, and that would be, or whatever it would be, as a kind of an entry to that game. But one-shots with very simple rules has been a thing really of the last 10, 15 years, I think. And I think that's it's a gateway just to be able to learn the basics, I think. That's purely anecdotal from what I've seen as well.
Again, my experience has not been sort of shorter, simpler systems, but the wideness and the variety and the uniqueness of systems coming out. We're going to have some guests lined up for later in the year who are going to be talking about one that they're kickstarting. And I'm just fascinated by that. It has these really interesting mechanics where you start as a young child and what happens as a child affects you later in life. And it's just a really interesting way to think about a role-playing game as very much a character narrative-driven story set in classic novels. So, that I'm noticing a lot of different variety and different ways, different types of stories that are being told through tabletop and less epic hero clashes, whatever it may be. Yeah,
more a broadening. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that overall it is just a broadening of scope from, which you would expect, right? Evolution doesn't normally go like this. Don't at me, scientists. But it is broadening out, and there's, so many different branches and so many different ways that people will try. I think because it does reflect some of the acceptance that people have of tabletop gaming as a valid form of entertainment and not something to be scoffed at. Or,
It's amazing. So, sharp time. Sharp turn for the next question. Ian, would you
Meow.
have a question you would like to throw to everyone?
Thank you for that, Joe. But I believe Thea and I were going to paper, scissors, rock to see who'd
We
go next.
were. Yeah,
What a
we
challenge.
were.
What
All
a-
right.
If you want to call it, Jared, well, I'm
Yeah.
ready to go.
All right, I'm ready.
Alrighty.
Are you 1, 2, 3? Wait.
It's going to be
We need to clarify
scissors,
the rules.
paper, rock.
Right,
And
go.
on
Okay.
Rocky show.
All right. On rock.
Okay.
Ready.
Scissors, paper, rock. Ooh. Ready?
Ready?
Scissors, paper, rock.
You win.
Hey.
Well played. Well played.
Alrighty.
All right. Question. I had a question that was thrown to me actually, and it was when we posted this week on Facebook. So it was through our socials, which was wonderful. And thank you to the poster. And I am sorry I don't have the name right here right this second. So
Pro
I'll find
streamers
it.
right here, all over it.
Totally
welcome.
prepared.
We had, and it was a
Was it
question
Jason?
actually from one of our fellow GMs. I think it was Jason, from the Collecticon. Hey, Jason, shout out to you. Thanks for the question, mate. It was actually, what does it take to run paid games in the long term? And he's asking specifically in terms of style and openness. It's a really great question, particularly as GMs are now becoming more popular as people to contact and actually book in games, more being known for that. So I'll kick it off, but guys, think about it as well. I'd love to hear in the chat your thoughts. I thought about this as well. Different groups have different requirements, so there's always that to consider. But at the same time, it still needs to have an inviting tone, whichever group that you're coming across. So for mine, first of all, I'm going to shout out to our own episode. In fact, last year, episode 19, Evolution of the Professional GM. We had each of our own experiences from this, plus some of the guys in the chat. It was really good to just, if you want to dig into that, jump on, watch that a bit, because that'll give you some insights into how we've gone about that. But for the tidbit, the nibble today, for me, I tend to book in advance. So as a pro GM, which allows me some time to ask some initial questions. Usually I'll try and get out a survey which has got some basics about how many people, is it your first time, what kind of stuff do you want to do, and really just to get the basics and to get things moving. And then I'd usually follow up with a phone call or a chat to find a way, what are the in between the lines kind of things, like how experienced, what age group, like what kind of style do you want to play? I've got a thing where I talk about specifically grit versus fun.
Yeah.
And if it's a 1, we're talking Harry Potter, really fantasy, blah, 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 even possible Pokemon ridiculousness, absurdism, that kind of thing. Anything can happen. All the way up to 5, which is Game of Thrones in the books, not even TV. It's like serious, and it's like I would not even recommend that for anyone under 18 at all. I'd go for like,
thank goodness.
Lord of the Rings is around a 2 or 3, I think, and that's kind of like giving people a bit of an idea of what kind of scope. So having that, I think, is important to get in terms of style, in terms of what level of maturity that you're also looking at. But if you're going pro, there's a couple of things that I always go to. One, know who you are. What kind of style of game you like to do? Because if you're going to do this regularly, you're going to want to enjoy it. And I'd have also, as a second thing, set expectations. For me, that's expectations on what RPGs I'm familiar playing. Like D&D 5e is a standard at the moment. So it makes it very easy because I'm doing a lot of them at the moment as a way to keep across these. But I can be open to, as I was saying before, one-shots to just play and engage people. And I want to do more of that, in fact. I also have core values that I have in terms of how I run the game. For example, for me, kindness across the table, collaboration is all about this. And we're here to have fun. And that's the main kind of things that I want for every table as well, and would expect people who are coming to it to adhere to. Not with a big crack across the knuckles, but more across just saying, hey, guys, do you agree to this? This is what we're all here for. And also just the basic format for how it'll work and what we'll do, time, place, etc. And then the basic rates. If you're going to be a professional GM, be very transparent and explicit about, like, these are the hours, this is how I work, and this is the times. If you have that, that's a starting point. And word of mouth is wonderful. It's to know who you are. But to get there, have like a website, have standard place where people can come to see what you do regularly, and it sets those expectations up with people.
Yeah.
That's me. Guys, what do you think? Who'd like
amazing.
to give this a crack as well?
I wouldn't mind jumping in with a slightly different perspective on that. Because I think, Ian, that's like a really useful and really interesting sort of your approach to doing it as an ongoing event. There's a word I'm looking for and I can't find it, but like an ongoing thing that is treated like a business. I wouldn't mind looking at the perspective of how to do professional GMing, but maintain that passion that you have. Because I think one of the things that we've talked about is how important it is as a GM, because you do put a lot of emotional energy into your games. If you are doing it as a business, I think that the risk of burnout is quite high if you are not getting something back out of it. And I think we've all discussed before, there is very few GMs that can make a pure profession of just GMing. So to me, I think one thing that you said, Ian, was like working in line with your values and running games in line with your values. And I think for me, it's that idea of if I was going to do something ongoing and commit to doing it professionally, it's a contract. Person is paying me to deliver a service. That service is a well-run professional game that meets the standards that I would hold myself to as the person who delivers a professional service. For me, and I think for all of us here, that means something that we're still passionate and excited and genuinely having fun about. So for me, the question is, how would I maintain that joy and that fun for me so it doesn't become a grind? And I think that would probably, and I don't professionally GM regularly. I do it occasionally because I enjoy that. And I enjoy being able to have access to that particular, like those groups. But I think that it would be finding a story, character, or something that I'm passionate about. And I think that's a really key thing, is that you've got to get more out of it than just the paycheck. Because even work, even if you are doing a job just for a paycheck, the toll that it can take on you is higher than if you were getting other intrinsic rewards out of that work as well. So that's sort of the response that I had to that question. Jared, how about you? Because I know you've done more professional GMing over a long period of time than certainly I have.
Yeah, having during lockdowns and restrictions, I used to be a chef, so have found a lot of trouble finding consistent, reliable work for what my profession was at the time. So it was a fantastic opportunity meeting people who were able to send me clients. So yeah, I was very, very fortunate that had happened. And so I was taking on probably more than I could chew. But again, I talk about how my current full-time job is going at the moment. I am being stretched a little bit. I know that I'm taking a little bit more on because of the staffing situations, but I'm working very closely with my managers because they are very mental health focused and they want to make sure that I'm not making mistakes or, that I'm being taken care of. And so that communication channel is open and wonderful. I guess because, depending on how you're going to get into this industry, it may be this solo enterprise, it may be a community or a network, or, you might be working under someone like I was, where I was sending commission to someone else. It was always this nice little structure that I had, and that's what I've got at my work now. So I know that because the staffing situations are going to be very temporary, I'm allowing myself to stretch myself, push my boundaries, find what's going on, because it's also a safe space to do that from my managerial level and from the client level. I know I've been in this job long enough to know how the client's coming and going. I'm very confident in my abilities, and I really love my job, and I do get that intrinsic value out of it. Laying that on top of my experience GMing, it was more of a solo enterprise. It was something that I was, talking about with people and saying, this is enjoyable, that's enjoyable. But it definitely got to the point where I needed to take, rein in things. I was committing to campaigns. There was the old one shot, the old bachelor party, birthday party, whatever it may be. And using all of that advice you've given, Ian, the communication, the setting up, You know, often for a birthday party, it might be for kids that I'd go out to a place and I would just run something kid friendly. Like they don't know really what they want to run. But for an online birthday, I did a whole map and a whole quest because they were like, we're running for this friend and this friend likes this. So, you know, catering to what their likes, wants, needs, their experience level, things like that. They would all, again, that group that I did the specialized one shot for, they had all played together previously, and this was their GM who they wanted to give them. It was a very lovely thing. So, you know, having the self-awareness to regulate your level of investment into it is absolutely crucial. Knowing what you can take on, because there was definitely some campaigns that were more stressful for me than others. That was a boundaries issue that I had with some players. There's definitely been, I've only recently actually ended, you know, a campaign that was started back in 2021, because other things have finally gotten in the way of what was a very kind of here and there session sort of structure that we had. But again, that was a wonderful group, and we were very personal with each other, and we became friends. And so that made things easier, even though there was always the expectation that it was a transaction. And again, I was never going to not bring 100%, just because I felt very, very, very comfortable with these people. And even now, one of them has reached out to me and they're like, oh, I want to like start streaming my art and stuff. How can we do that? So it's moved beyond the group, and I love to achieve that with a lot of the people that I play. So yeah, it's keeping those boundaries, making sure that it is still this business thing that happens, and then you can add that on top. But yeah, just pretty much everything that you guys have said, taking care of yourself and taking care of the client. You have to do both. And you come first. And that's not to say that you need to just rock up, you know, 5 minutes late and be like, oh, hey guys, I'm not really sure what we're doing tonight. You know, that means you may have to just say, look, I need a break this session, and they need to respect that, and that needs to be communicated. Ramble over.
I think we could do a whole episode on GM burnout, and we've touched on it a few times, but I think this is something, because there's a few people in the chat talking about it as well. I think that's something that we should revisit at a future episode.
I can actually mention specifically on that note, we did do an episode last year that I just want to give as a suggestion for anyone to have a look at. We did the dangers of burnout and the dangers of forever GMing. So if you guys want to look at episode 11 from last year, we had that and how to avoid burnout. We talk about it there and some self-care ways. Guys, it was so good hearing from both of you, actually, because it was both building on similar things that I've been doing, similar things that you've got. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's similar. When you said, Thea, about you want to make sure you're passionate about it, absolutely. And that's when I said the values that I had there of kindness, collaboration, and fun. Fun for me is part of it. I know I want to have fun, and that's part of the self-care. So the choice of game is definitely something coming from you. You want to enjoy it. So we could talk more, but we've got those.
We could. I just want to call out in chat, a lot of people are saying what they get back from their players is really important, and I 100% agree with that.
Love that.
Everyone gets something from it, I think. And
I think it needs to be. It's very few people, as I said, are ever going to make a living out of GMing. Some will, but very few. So you need to get more out of it. But I will get off my. That is a thing with me in terms of intrinsic values and rewards and motivations. I'll step down off my psychology soapbox.
Don't let that like stop anyone from starting to get into it, because I also found that because there was that level of expectation on my party, from there was a level of expectation from me to bring value, that my abilities increased. I would always like think a little bit more, prep a little bit more, ensure that what I was bringing to each and every session was my best. And I like that as an individual.
I think that's probably because they're going to enjoy it, and they're going to build on it too, which will feed you a bit, so that it's kind of back and forth. You're all getting something out of it. Thanks for the question anyway.
Thank you, Jason.
And
I head over to Thea.
I guess that's my question. So I'm actually going to take a very dramatic U-turn away from some of the more deep psychological safety, values, important stuff, doing things that are authentic and true to you. And I'm interested in this one. It's all about how do you create interesting and varied NPC motivations and personalities? So how do you populate the world with characters who have a degree of reality to them? Because to me, I think, and not everybody does this. Some people are, the goblin steps out and waves a sword at you, and that can be a completely valid way to play. Some people aren't comfortable doing voices or coming up with backstories for NPCs. Some people like to come up with them off the top of their head. I know the approach that I tend to fall into, but I am really curious about the two of you because Ian, with your, thespian background, and Jared, with your amazing voices and in-depth worlds, I'm really curious about your perspectives. Jared, I want to start with the person that builds the in-depth worlds and has all this detail. How do you approach creating an interesting NPC?
I would say a lot of it is probably improv. Having spoken about Dragonbane recently, I like what they've done with it, where they do give you kind of like NPC dossiers. If we're just kind of firstly touching on published material and what's there, you still need to make it your own. You need to find the voice. You need to convey the emotion. You need to figure out what the players are actually going to perceive through you as the performer of that character. And of course, I think, I'm going to talk from like really the performance side of it, because there is the forethought that goes into it. So if we're talking motivations and personalities, motivations are like really the driving force to make your world feel tangible and real. Why are people doing this? Where are they going to be doing it? Where are they going to be at any given time? And what's going to happen when the players interact with it? Are they opposing the players? Are they on the side of the players? Are they indifferent? That is stuff that you can sort of start building your foundation of, okay, so they're going to be hostile or collaborative or whatever it may be. Are they a quest giver? Do we want to really make them, something that can be interacted with? Or are they dressing for the world? Are they fodder to flesh out and sort of do that sort of thing? When it comes to personalities and what you bring, that is going to be completely different for every individual, because there's definitely been times where I have used narrative descriptive language to convey what that person is. And then there may be times where I get all goblin-y and all little old man, and the expression and the everything and the embodying the character. Yes, well,
I want to adopt this character already.
I'm just doing a bunch of stuff that felt like a character to me, and what's going to happen through that kind of ends up being the thing. So something I remember doing something like that was the old accountant that is up and stowed away in Ravenloft Castle in Curse of Strahd. I did it. I made a Curse of Strahd reference. So he's this old man.
You should make those Easter eggs.
There's this old man who is chained to a desk. Walls of parchment all around him that could topple and crush him at any minute. And he writes all the ledgers for the comings and goings of Strahd, all of these things for, however many years. And he's probably been there decades doing this. He's probably a little bit insane. Things like that. So just thinking of context, again, that NPC's motivations are that's the foundation, is they are probably so Stockholm syndromed at that point that maybe they are completely loyal to Strahd plus vampire brainwashing capabilities. So they're going to just act and do what they think they're going to do. And that's where I think that character should go. And I don't do forethought. I do what feels and expresses right. And then I will portray that through what I'm comfortable doing, which is body language and voices and things. But it doesn't have to be that. And I'd say if you're not so comfortable doing the improv in the moment sort of expression and everything, maybe you need a little more of that foundation and forethought so that you can have a clear idea of if this, then that when it comes to the live interaction. Yeah,
it's an incredible answer. How about you, Ian?
Actually, I was just listening to it, man. So much acting kind of like stuff you've got going on in there as well. It's funny because there is so much about, if you have acting training, I'd recommend it, guys out there. Even if you take one course, it just helps that sense of being able to go, it's the biggest cliche. What's my motivation? But it's like, whole point of the character is like, why are we here? What's important to me, and why am I here? Want something that's easy for me as well as the
what do
three
you value?
practical things.
Yeah.
What do you value? What's your purpose? And it can be from their point of view, but also just thinking of from you as a GM in the story. What's their purpose? And I think of 3 things straight away that I come up to. It can be what's purpose for the overall story. What's their purpose? How do they fit? What's a purpose that links to one of the characters? That can be just as strong, and it also can then take it into other worlds, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And finally, what's a purpose just practically for them to, because not everyone is going to be a world-breaking, Strahd kind of character. But you need, it's like you want to have a hook, and you want, is what you're saying, with fun and varied playability. Guys, tables. Have some tables nearby with personality quirks or mannerisms or anything like that. It's so simple, and it means you don't have to think so much on the fly. And it's a nice hook. That's just a simple thing as well, just to give you a bit of a sense of variation. So it can give you something that you don't have to think, and it's just right there.
Yeah.
For me, if it's an NPC, though, that is something that's story related, either for the game that we're playing or for the characters, it's linked to one of theirs, I will try to find out, what is the link to that character or to that, and what does it mean to this character? What does it mean if they don't get something that is linked to the story? What does it mean if they do get it? And that can help you with a bit of an idea of where they're coming from. The tables always help. They can give you a particular thing. But what I find really interesting, that I know are going to be important ones, that I know I want to invest in, I can't help it. I look to people I know or characters. I try not to be too close to people that I know and make it there. I try to go with characters I've seen on screen or other characterizations, and then I will try and link it to something that links to what their motivation is. I'll give you one example so that we can move on. There is a cleric of the agriculture god Shantia. I was thinking for a while about what she would be like. They were going to go meet her, and I kept thinking, in this small town, she's like at the center of a hearth and home, a place where they welcome people through, and she does food for the needy, and I started thinking, like, it's a real motherly kind of figure. And so I started getting this kind of sense, and I looked for images. I always try and get an image as a kind of a reference point. And I found this one of this really kind of chubby-faced lady as well, like this, with like bread in her hands or something like this, and this big smile. And I don't know why I thought of this, but I thought of a singer from the 50s, and I'm trying to remember her name. But she has this kind of like warm voice and almost like a cat kind of thing. And every time she talked, hello, how are you? You're all good to see you. And every time she laughed, we were like, ha, ha, ha. And she just roll with it and just sit back for a bit, because it's going to help shape the mood of the scenes that she's in. And I really thought that's important. So having an idea of the mood that you want to set for a scene, Jared, like you were saying with that account, it was like, this guy stuck underneath the piles of all these things that have been wrong for many years, and he's going a bit batty from there. Kind of creepy, kind of odd, and he's kind of focused, and it's very introverted, and it's kind of like focused on his thing. Whereas for her, she's warm and enveloping and all that kind of, have that kind of sense of mood. I think that really helps. Hope that helps anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I love both of those answers, and I think the point that you brought up, Ian, about the purpose of what is the purpose of the NPC, I think I do that implicitly, but I think that I will be better at running NPCs if I'm a lot more explicit about why is this character here, and making it more complex. And I'll talk, what I mean by that is I am very big on motivations. So when I'm creating NPCs, it's what do they want? And a very clear intention for me is an NPC is never, ever going to be just a bad guy. There are no people that just want to be evil for evil's sake, because I think that while that can be fun, for the kind of games that I run, that's not adding to the plot that I like. So all of my NPCs, whether they are antagonists or protagonists or supportive characters, they believe that what they're doing is the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, there always has to be that ability for the NPC to think that what they're doing is in line with their values and in line with something that is important to them.
Yeah.
So it really goes to that motivation. And for me, I think this is not going to come as a surprise to anyone. I'm not a big pre-planner. I don't have dossiers on my characters. I generally will have a name and a picture, which to me will then evoke those kind of... It's great. I would love to have it, but I have a picture that will evoke what that character is like, so I can kind of embody them. I'm nowhere near as good at voices as you two are, but I think embodying characters is how I tend to portray my NPCs. You know, you have your very good noble who is very tall and graceful, and you've got your little child who just wants to play. I'm swear I'm not evil. Why do people never trust children? But to me, it is always they need to have a motivation. But I love that idea of having more purpose, because I think when I am rushed, I tend to default to NPCs that don't have a motivation. They simply have a purpose. And I love that word about set dressing. I think, Jared, you were talking about that, is they're like extras in a film. They're there to form a purpose, to shape the story, but they're not a real character. And to me, I want all my NPCs to actually have lives that continue on outside of the game, because I think that makes for a more interesting story. So for me, I look at their motivations, and I like to have a broad range of motivations. There might be the highly conservative NPC in local government who believes that, you know, encouraging competition between different areas and, you know, making things scored with money, and that's how that's going to stimulate the economy, and that's a good thing, and they believe that. You know, there might be the other person who believes that free will and freedom is the most important thing, and that they are completely constrained by these rules of society, and people should be free to express things. And both of those are very valid to them, and that can create interesting causes of conflict, which then the players can come in and have to resolve. So,
can I throw something in there as well? Because it just reminded me of something about that kind of if you're in a bind, go with for D&D in particular. It can be used in any system, but I really love in D&D that player characters, classes. Is it classes? No, backgrounds. Every background
I love backgrounds.
has bonds, flaws, personality, and ideals. They are fantastic motivators. I try to go with something like an ideal and a flaw. I usually try and call it a quirk, because flaw sounds kind of negative, and I feel like, but if you call it something like that, if you've got an ideal, something that this is what I fight for, this is what I do it for, it's great because straight away you got a hook, and it could be for money. I actually want to just be rich. Or it could be, and I think that's the way of the world. Or it's like, I fight for my God. Or I fight for my people here. This is it. I do everything for them.
Yeah.
Whatever you've got there is great. The quirk is the best part, because then they can't help but be like that. And that's just fun to play. So anyway, this is an idea. Yeah.
I think that's actually a nice way to help when you've got newer players coming in as well, is when I'm running one-shots at conventions or, you know, things coming in, I'll do that very simple, you know, you can get it from D&D Beyond, or in that is, what is the bond, what is the flaw? And people love that, and people will play to that even if they are not particularly into role-playing, or they're not comfortable with that. It's like, oh, I don't know how to play this character. Oh, my character believes that freedom is the most important thing, so that's what's going to drive my decision-making.
And suddenly they're going, hang on, you'll be trodden, aren't you? You're downtrodden. I'm going to come or something.
Yeah.
And
it's a nice little quirk, and it's great for NPCs as well.
I think my recent long conversation with guest of the show, James Shepherd, last weekend actually puts it quite eloquently. I don't know what the quote's from, but he's just brilliant like that. He's got those things. And it's everyone thinks they're trying to save the world. They've just got different ways to go about it. Knowing that perspective, and just like what you were touching on, Thea, as well, as like, there's antagonists and stuff like that and blah, blah, blah. Again, nothing is inherently evil. There may just be somebody who wants to do something different. You know, again, like if we examine Strahd, for an example, he...
Drink.
Almost like, are you a sleeper agent? Like we mentioned Strahd, and then it's...
He is Rahadin. He actually is Rahadin.
Rahadin is vile. Rahadin is evil. Strahd is is also a victim if you know the full story in a way.
As we were saying about NPCs.
So, but yeah, no, there's levels of it, and what James and I were also talking about was like horror films and entertainment and like bleakness versus, you know, there's definitely films that can be bleak and leave you like void and empty, and then there's definitely horror films that have the nice endings, or you know, there is that's exactly what we hit at the crux of it. There's a little bit of hope left over, and that's super important. So yeah, it's always about context, perspective, and motivation, and finding how to frame that through bonds, flaws, ideals. You know, what are they loyal to? Where did they, you know, are they loyal to where they come from or where they now exist? All of that sort of stuff. Just thinking about where they're at right now. So yeah, I think we are, unfortunately, not going to have a huge amount of time to dive into. We're going to have a hidden question, but I feel like we should maybe do another one of these. I think we should do them pretty regularly because it's nice to like chop and change into different stuff. And actually just have some conversations. So Purdy in the chat.
I love this question.
Purdy's thrown in the chat for our final question for the last 10 minutes of the episode. Is there something you think pre-made adventures just really kind of lack or miss? Ooh, I'm not going to dive into that because I could talk for the last 10 minutes. Who else has got a perspective on that?
Yeah, I've got some thoughts. And I feel like I'm a little bit an uninformed person because I don't run pre-made adventures.
Let's throw to the person who doesn't really do that.
Let's go to that. But I think the reason that I don't run pre-made adventures is one of the things that I get out of running games is that creative buzz. I love creating a story. I love working with my players and that collaborative storytelling where I don't even really know where we're going to end up. As the GM, I know where we're starting. I know some of the turns along the way, but I don't know where it's going to go. And I love that. With pre-made adventures, I think, and this is not a criticism of them, this is just why I don't gravitate to them, is that there is a storyline and there is a narrative and they're very well constructed and very well thought out, but it's not the story that I'm telling with my players. And to me, that's what I get out of running these games, is we are telling and creating a story together. So to me, that's what they lack. There's nothing wrong with them. And I will look at elements from pre-made adventures. You know, it takes some of that cognitive load off to come up with, I've got to come up with everything. I might borrow a setting, or I might find legally distinct but heavily influenced inspiration from a character. You know.
Name change for copyright reasons.
Yeah, name change for copyright reasons. They're blonde now. But yeah, so to me, I think that's what's lacking. It's nothing about the game constructed itself. And I want to write pre-made adventures for people and put them out there. But for me, it is that creativity that I think, and that freedom. Talk about people that loving freedom. Was I talking about myself? Too much of me in the stream.
No.
It's fine. I think everybody here knows that I'm at heart an anarchist. So yeah, to me, that's, I think, what is lacking about pre-made adventures. But what about you guys?
Jared, do you have some sort of thoughts?
I would agree. The open-endedness of it, the unexplored, the you know, it's a matter of what is the player's fate going to be, and it's like to get to the last chapter. So like, having run a couple of different modules, started with Horde of the Dragon Queen when we came into 5th. Didn't really like it. We pretty much like got onto the caravan section and like fell away pretty quickly. Little while after that, jumped onto Curse of Strahd. That is engineered, as we've talked about on the show, to be more sandboxy, a little bit more organic, where they can go, what they do. So your pacing and structure and order of operations changes no matter what, because you drop all the clues and you see where the players want to sniff, and you flesh that out as you go. And that was very easy because it's always very clear what chapter or what section I needed to prepare for the next week. I think with like bigger stuff, and it was definitely beneficial, always read them cover to cover first. You just have to if you're going to do that. But what, like, to specifically answer the question, what do they miss?
Lack or miss?
They miss the ability to know what the players get out of a session or out of a campaign. They are obviously going to try and be catered to a certain thing, like all of them are certain themes. Gothic Horror for Curse of Strahd, Tomb of Annihilation, Dungeon Crawl, Dungeon of the Man Mage, Dungeon Crawl, you know, all of that sort of stuff. Dragon Heist, not a heist campaign. You know,
What? You don't steal dragons?
Or gold, believe it or not. It's so, you know, each of them's going to be themed a different way, and how that plays and interacts is, again, much like the first question, picking the system for the right group and all the rest of it. You're going to have an idea of what it is and what it's trying to achieve. So that, I feel, is going to be interesting, because you just don't know whether it's going to be fun. You don't know with that particular group how it's going to gel. Having recently run Spelljammer, The Light of Xeraxis, it was always going to be a great time with my current party. They're very into their, you know, wild swashbuckling shenanigans, D&D in space. What a great idea. Everybody was enthusiastic about it, and because we started on that foundation, and because I'm now at the experience level where I do chop and change, make it my own, threw in this, literally made this race attached to the core villain and just started doing stuff and just making it up as I went, and like even the motivations. And I just do hate that I did say to my players very early on, so yeah, you need to like go to this place, but to do that you need a ship, you need a spell jamming vessel, so you're going to need to do a favor for this person. And I very deliberately said to them, don't worry guys, this isn't going to be like you owe a favor of a favor of a favor. It's that to the friggin' moon and back across wild space. That is the whole adventure. So I did like them, but again, we had fun along the way. And that's the main thing, is if everyone's excited, using what we've talked about this episode, if everyone's excited for what you're running, you're going to be okay. But make sure that you're able to adapt, bring things in. And like for you, Thea, the fun is this open-endedness. You don't know, you get to explore and build the world. For me, it's being able to bring that to life, bring my own experiences. How does, you know, describing how the wolves and werewolves shift in Curse of Strahd was heavily inspired by you know, TV shows and things, because different shows will do it in different ways, and I've gone, I want that one. That looks amazing. So that's me.
Awesome.
Well, picking up on both of those for me, it's, you pretty much have said it. Quinn Esther actually put it in the chat as, I have never run a module successfully all the way through. I've been playing.
You started them?
The same for me. And it's like, I have done, I mean, actually, I've come very close. In fact, funnily enough, Dragon Heist out of all of them, which is probably the most adaptable adventure you could possibly play anyway. Out of all of the ones that have been released that I think of, has been the one I've got closest to. When I've been playing for over 30 years, what I've learned from that, the first one I tried to run all the way through was the Temple of Elemental Evil. If anyone knows that, it is a gigantic game. We didn't even get halfway. It was like, it doesn't survive contact with the party. I think there's a phrase around that. And it's like, if you're really listening to your party, it shouldn't really, because you're going to have your own storyline. I'm currently in the middle of the Baldur's Gate Descent to Avernus, or I should say, the plan was to head towards that. It's not going to follow the plot. I've read it through anyway, and there's flaws in there from what I can see. How did this? This is so
very poorly written. I will say, very cool premise.
Wow,
tiny thread to commit to this, but sure, we'll get
that is the biggest thing, is your player's commitment into that, because what is their motivation to actually go down to Avernus? Is if you do not set that up, it is loose at best.
And that's what I've got set up in this particular game. I set it up pretty particularly, but we're not going to follow the path that the book suggests.
And maybe that's what's lacking in these games, is that you can only pre-plan or pre-plot, pardon the pun, so many pathways for the player to go down.
Absolutely. I think I've found these pre-made ones are for definitely here's an idea. Here's something to hook into. Here's something that's a flavor. Hope you like it and just try it. I usually use it as just kind of like a baseline of, okay, I'll take these ideas out of it. That's pretty much it. It's like, you know, it's like, oh, this is interesting. Don't know if it'll fit, but hey, what's already going to fit into my game anyway? Because it's like, I know it's not going to survive, you know, contact with the party, but it's also, you'll never, I don't think you could actually follow it. Otherwise, it just becomes a railroad, you know, and just becomes boring. It's like, you want the aliveness of, we've made this choice to go over here, and you're like, I had no plan for that, but sure, let's go to Celestia instead and find out how the angels do this and follow their support, because the players are all keen to do that. So
maybe there is an art form to running modules. Let's flipping this around a little bit.
I would agree. There's got to be technique. Yeah.
Yeah, because you think of it escapes me. You know, they're a big group and they run modules, and there's a whole lot of them. Can't think of it. It's gone.
On Twitch?
Not on Twitch, just like at conventions. Anyway, they run modules. And so there's a lot of people that run modules and run them very successfully. So I feel like there is an art form. We are all very freeform. You know, we're like, this is going to be a very niche reference. It's like freestyle skydivers and formation skydivers. The whole way of scoring is very different. The whole way of flying is very different, but they are both equally valid art forms or sport forms. So I wonder, because none of us really run modules, I mean, excusing Curse of Strahd.
Adventurers League, is that what you were talking about?
That's what I'm thinking of.
That's what I was thinking of as well. Yeah,
thank you. Oh, you guys are the best. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's funny.
Organised play is published.
I'm going to jump in on that, because all of those are modules, and that's how it started. They were all short, they were only this long, they were only to hit it.
And there's actually a lot of rules about how and where that's run as well. So it's even more restrictive. But that's the thing, is because there's an even playing field and there's specific rewards and all the rest of it, that is very successful. People love it. They don't get this sandbox free form exploration. Everybody has to run the season. And that's the other thing, is they are little adventures. You get one little bit at a time, and each season for the book that comes out around that time, fantastic system, and obviously very successful. Intrinsically, modules are fantastic. They do give you so much. They build worlds. They give you locations and characters and quests and all of these things for you to like build yourself up as a GM. So for early GMs, it's a good idea. But again, I wouldn't 100%. Do what I did and dive too deep into them. But like, I've honed my skills because there wasn't the need to do what you've been doing, Thea, the open-ended creative, the session to session, the like sort of where are we going. I was far more focused on other GM skills, like my voices, my characters, fleshing out those motivations, like stuff we've talked on, making sure that I very clearly was adapting what was given to me by my players, so that I didn't fall into what I was talking about in terms of what they miss, which is reacting to the players. That's your job as a GM. So you're going to have to work on that skill and build that muscle to make sure that whenever there's an encounter that comes along, we're actually I'm just going to start summarizing the rest of this episode like you were saying, Ian. If there's going to be an NPC, which character in the party are they going to attach onto most? I can already think, I'm cataloging through all the different encounters that I ran in Curse of Strahd, where I was like, okay, so the party's coming up to the windmill. There's what bad thing is in there? Who's going to get the most satisfaction out of getting the last hit on that? Or, when they rescue the children from there, who is going to attach themselves to those children, or who are the children going to attach themselves to when they're rescued?
No spoilers.
When they go to the winery and help rescue the family at the winery, there's a different interesting mix. There's an old crone man. There's again younger young budding family and stuff like that. So there's going to be different people who interact with different NPCs. So those were the skills that we've talked about tonight that I learned because I didn't have to worry about building a location and a plot and a motivation, and then it
Yeah.
is there, and you can focus on other skills. So
Yeah.
to bring it up,
It sounds like
the idea of
the
modules.
the simple thing that adventure modules miss, if it does summarize and doesn't have contact players, and it's just it cannot try to be everything for everybody anyway.
Yeah.
I think having that as an expectation straight away to say it's not going to be everything anyway, that's probably a good way to do it. So
Yeah, for sure.
you
I
wanna-
hate to say it, gents, we're out of time.
Sadly.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah.
And thank you, chat. You guys were awesome. That's so good.
Yeah. We're probably going to wrap up. I do note that for anybody who's not subbed, unfortunately, you are on an ad break right now. However, we've got a few things in chat talking about players globbing onto the random NPC,
Always.
the meme of Boblin the Goblin.
Always.
In my games, Bunty's hat seller suddenly became an intrinsic. Margaret Batcher. She's a method. Looks like a bat. Margaret Batcher.
Margaret Batcher. Yeah, no, that's it. You will have your throwaway and what you think is, you didn't create this NPC to be fleshed out and part of your grand weave, but by God, do you not have a choice in that sometimes? What we do have a choice, sadly, is that we are going to have to bring this episode to its penultimate conclusion. Next week is going to be our 50th episode, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between. We are celebrating 50
Oh my God, I
episodes
look like an
of the
e-girl there.
Social Pillar. And it was probably going to happen this year at some point. I think we're gonna have to talk about 50 years of D&D. It is
maybe
absolute utter milestone. We're going to look back at our achievements and everything, because it's also going to be a season end. So we're going to be looking back at our achievements. We're going to be looking at what this wonderful hobby is and what it's done for us. I think having this little reflection, and thank you to everyone who's been tuning in tonight as well. Thank you for all the engagement, the wonderful questions. We are so humbled to have you guys here. We got big plans for everything coming for the rest of the year, but slow and steady. We want to do it right, and you guys are just helping us prove that what we've been doing for the last year and a half has been entirely worthwhile. So that's us for tonight, guys. Any final words, Ian, Thea?
Thank you, everybody in chat. Sorry, Ian, you go. I'm doing some things.
Oh, you're getting ready for a rating. Well,
I am.
Well, first, thank you, Jared. That was beautifully said. I can't really add much to it. It's basically thank you, everyone. For it's so good working with these guys, and it's so good working. Just hearing your responses out there and questions. 50. We'll definitely be looking as a reflection, and we'll be, if we've got time as well. I think we're in the 50th year of D&D. Why not? Yeah. Have a look at that.
Sure. Just by the by, we have 50 episodes, but D&D, this thing you might have heard of, they're kind of 50 years old.
And shout out to Jason, who's actually mentioned in the Discord. He's actually put together a little bit of a YouTube playlist for us to do some research on. So thank you for that, Jason. That's really interesting. So keen to check that out.
We'll have our last one next week, and then we're going on a bit of a break back beginning of August. So we may have some cozy things way join in and watch in the meantime, which is where we're a bit more relaxed and just chilling and gaming. But next week we're back for the reflection for 50. And Thea, what else you can find us?
We're on YouTube. Link is in the chat, and eventually we will get around to putting all the links everywhere for them. But we've got the link in the chat. We have Discord. If you would like to continue the conversation, please join us in our Discord. It's been wonderful. Thank you, Raiders. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you along. I hope you enjoyed our highly planned ramblings. We are going to raid someone this evening. Couple of choices. I recommend we head... Oh, where'd they go? The Coastal Conclave, who joined us a little bit earlier. Friend of the channel. They are doing some D&D stuff.
Coastal Conclave.
What they were doing. It was all right. Thank you, Purdy. Thank you for your. So I recently rewatched a little bit of the latest Mad Max, and that comment reeks to me of mediocre. But we love everybody in our chat. We appreciate having you along, and we really appreciate your questions. Part of the reason we do this is we love interacting with you guys. I love these guys, but I love you guys more.
Wow. And on that note, it's been a hell of an episode. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for watching. And we will see you all, same place, same time, next week.
Adios. Yes.
Bye.
Yep.
Thank you all.
Come over, check out Coastal Conclave with us. Mwah. Bye.
Bye.